this is an advantage I have. None of you have seen the video, so like, what's your initial reaction?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you, thank you.
The kids' responses are all very much that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Okay. So you've heard these kind of, yeah. Okay. All right. So this is not staged. This is not like I'm always intrigued. Like they'll have like videos on YouTube and like like we're gonna do a role play now. And like the person, the people doing the role play, everybody's cooperative. Like it works out so well. So here obviously this is not staged. These are real live kids and they're being themselves. Okay. Yeah.
The young man's response, I think, was very interesting. It's kind of like almost as though like the light shone when he was angry about it.
He's angry. That's right. That's right. That's right. Right. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Well, I think until you did that, it was about them being in control.
Right.
And you tell them not to do something, and they're doing it. And so now it's no longer about that. It's about them being in control. And then now, when they shine the spotlight on the behavior, suddenly there's no real reward for it.
Right.
The behavior.
Right. Actually, what's interesting is I'm pretty neutral right now. I'm like, okay, guys, we're doing a project. We're all going to work together, right? And I'm kind of like, I'm with you guys, kind of, all right? And what you'll see in the next video is I actually kind of take control, where like this is my idea, and you guys need to do my idea. And you can get a sense the more that it's my idea, what are they going to do? Right? Now, we ain't going to do that at all. Right, but as you say, right now it's kind of like it's a neutral thing, Okay, any other reactions?
Well, you engaged them. That was the first thing I noticed.
Right.
It was the way you engaged them. That was the beginning of it.
Okay, okay, okay. And that was actually one of the challenges. It's like I have to get in there, and basically in the first 5 minutes, I need to create some kind of connection. Okay, and what I want to do now is actually we're going to break up that section. All right, we're going to go through it, and then we're going to talk about like why I was doing each thing. Okay, in the video. Okay.
You sidestepped it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it weren't for that one kid that kind of had that switch.
Right.
I mean, what I kind of get the sense that they just would have gone with it and might have encouraged that kind of behavior. So if there wasn't that kid that had that switch, I mean, where would you go from there?
I don't know. I guess I lucked out, that there was a kid that was kind of like the spokesman,
Yeah.
But I guess you also get a sense that he's also one of the leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? So he was kind of like, trying to put this together, and the very fact that he didn't want to do it. I think what's interesting for me about the video in general, it's like, this is like a group, this is like a system, and what happens is when you work with individuals, there's also, when I do an intervention with an individual, they have like these different kids living inside them, and very often there's this one piece of them that's like, well, why are you doing this? I don't want to, and that's kind of like the part that I play into, is the part that, and I didn't really play into the kid. He was like coming out to me. And I was kind of bouncing off of him and saying, hey, Juju, if you figured it out, that's great. Just do what you normally do. Okay? And I think that was kind of like, he couldn't figure out, like, why are you doing that? If therapy's not working, why are you telling us to do this? Okay?
How did the environment react? Because I'm thinking, the environment that you're trying to do the paradoxical intervention is going to be important because, especially in the residential program we're in, it's a sexual issues program, anything that anybody did to sort of encourage behaviors would be by a huge reaction from direct care staff.
Sure.
People higher up.
Right.
One, how did the direct care staff and other people react to you sort of feel like maybe you were encouraging that behavior?
Right. Well, first of all, I'll be honest with you. Like they knew that I did paradoxical interventions, and most of the direct care staff had no idea what that meant. Okay. But what was to my advantage in this group was that the cottage called me up and said, we don't know what to do here, and we need something. Can you help? So I think when I walked in, the staff was do whatever you need to do. Okay. So they were kind of open to allowing me a little free rein, so to speak. And And fortunately, things turned out well. But the thing is like, obviously in terms of doing the intervention, in my mind, I have to be prepared. Let's say the kids did, hey, that's a great idea. We're going to do that behavior more, okay? Again, what's interesting about the intervention is my focus is on the alliance, okay? And as strange as it sounds, I'm not concerned about the behavior, all right? The behavior to me is secondary. And what I know is that if I shift the alliance, then that will shift the whole system. What I also know is that the kids have no interest in allying with me, okay? So by me kind of, later you're going to see the word, I hijack the alliance. All right, what do you mean you hijack the alliance? That's kind of violent, isn't that? Not really. I just kind of go in and I just tell you, I'm connected with you. So I don't ask them to connect. I just tell them I'm connected. All right? And by simply doing that, by simply shifting the alliance, that in and of itself will have an impact on everything else. All right? Now, and I know what you're asking, but if you encourage the behavior, they might do it. Okay? And I hear the question, and I'm going back to like 99.85 of what I'm doing here is increasing the alliance, right? So we may come back to that question, but let me move on and kind of, we're going to break it down a little bit. How are we doing on time? Okay. Okay. No. Okay. So this section is about 2 minutes. This is the first 2 minutes of the intervention. So one of the words that I got was that there's a sexual talk in the cottage, and guys fooling around. We're going to create a list of what guys' behaviors are and like how much they do it, because as much as guys do it, we don't know. It's called in psychology this thing called a baseline. Right? So what we're looking for here is the baseline of people's behavior. Now, since we are videoing the presentation here, I'm not going to use anybody's name, any of their actual names. So what I did was down. Hurricane Shady, Pookie, all right. Pookie.
Who don't like that name? Dead eye.
Cream Hand Elephant was Cream Hand Elephant. So whatever you were doing 3 weeks ago, whatever you were doing 2 weeks ago, whatever you were doing a week ago, all right? I don't want you to change
Daniel.
I don't want you to change anything. Right? So I got a question. All right, so I got a question.
Hey, look.
Daniel.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So as I said before, what I need to do initially, I'm coming in, I know that these kids have no interest in connecting with me. And what I came up with was that I would do a chart, okay? Because in doing the chart, I would have each kid's name on the chart. And what you'll see that I did was I said each kid's name, all right? And by simply saying their name, they know that they're on my radar, okay? Now, I realized, by the way, is that had I put the chart up with all the names on, right, and had not covered the names initially, right, that means they would have walked into the room and they would have seen their names on the chart, okay? And that would have taken away, I guess, the surprise element of doing the intervention. And what I'm saying is that they may have reacted too early before the intervention actually got started, okay? So my point is that the chart turns out to be a very important aspect of the intervention in that it includes the names of all the residents, okay? And it was intimate. It wasn't like I used their names that everybody uses. I was using their nicknames. This is the names that they use between themselves, all right? And what that indicates is that I'm an insider, all right? So as I'm saying that, I'm creating, like, the point of being, of creating the alliance. If I know their nicknames, I'm like really, I'm saying that we have this alliance already, okay? In terms of unveiling the names, that was kind of like the surprise that all of a sudden it was like that they suddenly realized that they were on the radar, that this guy is with them, okay? It was actually very important that they would hear and see their own name, okay? And again, it was very important that they would be known to me, okay? So any questions, yeah?
What was your interaction with them prior to this intervention? Like, what was your role with them?
With their role, actually I didn't have much of a role. I mean, I saw some of these kids, actually Juju I did see for some individual sessions because he had been referred to me. But he was like, yeah, like whatever, in sessions. But this was the first time I did a group intervention with them. Okay, so I wasn't like in the cottage, I wasn't like part of the staff at all. So when they called me in, this was kind of like a new thing we're going to do. We're going to have a group meeting, and Dr. Kaplan is going to come in. I think the kids knew me, but they didn't really, they weren't particularly worried about, who this guy is.
Did you get their nicknames from the staff?
Yes, yeah. So I'm like sitting there, taking notes, like, what's their nicknames? We got the nicknames, okay?
Do you think that would have had the same impact if you weren't videoing and you'd actually used their real names instead of
the question is, would it have been different if I used their real names rather than their nicknames, okay? To tell you the truth, it was much more advantageous for me to use the nicknames because that's more intimate. The staff would use their regular name, but there's a certain distance, if you're John or George or Steve, well, yeah, everybody's, but once you're talking about Hurricane and Pookie and Cream Hand Dollar Bill, it's like, whoa, you really know, you're really in contact with me. They really felt that I was with them.
And the laughter showed that.
Yeah. And the fact that they reacted, by the way, I had done other interventions, and the staff would actually get shaken sometimes because the kids would react. Okay, because usually when you do an intervention, the staff likes everything like nice and calm. But for me, I realized that when I got this reaction, I said, we're on target here, we're moving, okay, because the kids had let down their guard, okay, and they weren't like putting up any kind of false, being good. They were just being themselves as we were going through the intervention.
I don't know, did you prep the staff for that?
I may have. I don't really remember. I know on other interventions, I did prep the staff to say, well, we're going to do an intervention. I need you to know, because I had like a co-therapist, and I said, listen, the kids might get loud. They might get, really, it may be seem a little hectic in there. I need you to know that. And I did the intervention, and I think my co-therapist went to my director and said, I don't know what just happened. Okay. But for me, that's part of the intervention, is that they're able to let down their guard and simply be themselves. So as you saw, the room goes from a dull energy, just kind of like sitting there. I mean, until I took the names off, you wouldn't really know that there was anybody in the room. Okay, it was only like when they reacted that you really got a sense of the kids that were there. And part of what's happening is that the kids now feel involved. Now, what's interesting about doing a paradox intervention is that there's kind of an effortless quality to it. You don't really see me working to do anything, I'm not trying to get in there and do something. I'm actually taking their energy and their behavior, and so for me, I'm just kind of like guiding that energy and just identifying it. But I myself, I'm not making and trying to struggle with them in the intervention. And as you notice, I'm not asking to join. I'm just coming in and I'm joined. Sometimes I think of myself as a Bugs Bunny kind of therapist. Where if you ever watch Bugs Bunny, he's Elmer Fudd is trying to get him, and he's chasing him, and then all of a sudden Bugs Bunny shows up. What are you trying to do? Hey, Elmer, what are you trying to do? And suddenly Elmer Fudd realizes that it's Bugs Bunny, the guy that he's chasing. Okay, so it's through the chart that I actually get across to these guys that I'm with you already. I become one of the group by actually putting up the chart. Okay? Now, in going in, what I'm expecting is that the boys were expecting me to confront them, okay? And obviously I don't do that at all. So for them, that was probably a curveball in terms of what was happening. And instead of actually confronting them, I actually say to them, I said, we're not going to change anything, right? So if you're on the other end of that, where like this guy comes in and says, don't change anything, what do you think you might initially think? What might you initially be thinking about?
Well, he would experience that as acceptance.
Okay, yeah.
Because it-
But I mean, you'd be surprised, right? I mean, there's kind of an element of surprise in that. There's an element of what's going on here. Like I thought you were supposed to change this, but he's telling us not to change. All right, so it's kind of like, it's like all of a sudden what they're expecting is not happening. Okay?
But if you link it back to the attachment,
Yeah.
which is, I think that's the son, right?
Yeah.
If you link it back to that, in the attachment process, if you accept someone unconditionally, then they experience, that's really the essence of
Right, and that's exactly what I'm doing is I'm accepting them unconditionally, right? I'm Carl Rogers walking in there and going, guys, you don't have to change anything, right? Right? And again, it's counterintuitive to what we would think in therapy. Well, wait a minute, we're trying to change them. And I think one of the most difficult things to explain in terms of doing a paradoxical intervention is that my intent is not to change anybody, okay? Well, wait a minute, but you're there, you're supposed to be changing them. No, that's true, but the reality is if I know that if I can shift the alliance, the change will happen automatically, okay? And the analogy I kind of think of is, it's like if you walk into the room here, and let's say you're from the 17th century, okay? And somebody told you, we'll give you, a big house on the hill, and we'll give you the kingdom, the king's treasure, if you don't let these lights go out, right? Now, if you come in, right, what you're probably going to do is you're going to guard these lights with your life, all right? All right, and what you're going to do is you're going to be doing everything in your power to focus on the lights. But for me, because I know what the switch is, right? I can go and I just flick the switch, all right? And that has impact on the entire system. So it's like just that little, knowing that if I can influence the therapeutic alliance, that is the switch that will affect the bigger behavior, okay? As I said before, I'm neither threatening nor confrontational. And I'm giving the boys an instruction that they can technically follow. Right? I mean, they can be successful in what I'm asking them to do. So I'm not giving them anything that they can't do. I'm giving them instruction that, this is what I would like you guys to do. Okay? Okay, so let's go to the next part of the video.